I'm 𝗤𝗢𝗢𝗣𝗡, and I love Chicago real estate. Between showings, I stop in my favorite places, talk with local business owners, and bring their story to you. This is my Chicago.
He does a little bit more corporate, but in terms of like what we buy from our mutual suppliers, it's always number one.
Well, that's what I noticed. I walk past here and I drive past here all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's different.
Yeah.
You know, like I was like, what is it? I thought it was an art store,
Yeah.
like a boutique, a gallery at first. And I was like, wait. And I saw this wall.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a frame store.
Yeah.
There's really good art on the wall.
Yeah.
And okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And then I walked in here and I was like, okay, this is interesting. I just like popped in one day. I was like, what's?
Yeah. What is this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long has that location been there?
So my dad's been in the business. This is his 41st year.
41st.
Yeah. That location's been there for 25 years.
Okay.
And then I've been working, like, you know, I don't do this every day, but I'm involved every day, you know. Mm-hmm. So I've been working with my dad since I was like 13. Mm-hmm. My sister started 3-4 years ago.
Okay. So the whole family's involved. Your mom's here, your dad's here.
Yeah.
Do you have more siblings?
No, it's us 4, and then our whole team is 17.
Okay.
So there's like 13.
17 people.
Yeah. And we're always hiring, by the way. So anything we can get.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are those different roles? What do people do here?
So framing is half that stuff. So it's 8 people, right? Whether it be full-time framers, part-time framers, fitters. We have, beyond this is the engraving business. That's a big part of the business too. So laser engravers. We're just all day, we're just engraving. It could be Yetis, mugs, corporate awards. That's the business my dad started in 81. We have the painters, right? So
painters?
Yeah, so all this. This is why we get orders from all over America. The additional painting here, the additional painting here.
So this is a different artist.
Yeah, that's our
art. This. Okay.
Yeah. So what it is so what we call it is art walls. You know, so we essentially extend the art with the right color, with the right match.
It's really cool on the inside here.
Yeah, too. Those are the most popular ones. So this is what raised our profile across the states. And then we just like get tubes in all the time saying, hey, replicate this. What could you do? I want to get it done like Frame Chicago. So they'll take their stuff that maybe doesn't matter as much to them to their local framer, but when they have something like this, they just send it to us.
Okay.
You know, and what it's done is it's actually made Chicago this like epicenter of course the arts, but also like branding us as Frame Chicago. It kind of gives the whole city something to kind of get behind. Mm-hmm. I think that's why a lot of artists come here too. Is because they know like we're part of the fabric of the city. The city made us. We live in the city. We breathe the city. We bring immigrants coming to the city. And it's a lot of the same stories that other Black and brown people have had. So I think that connectivity really makes it work.
When has that been more of a focus of the business? Because I imagine when your dad started, it was building up accounts, building the business, but shifting or focusing on more of this Black and brown art.
Yeah. So my sister started working heavily about 6 years ago. This is everything that was in my sister's apartment.
Okay.
And my sister was like, well, the stuff that's in my apartment is not at my dad's shop. And she kind of shifted it and she said, I'm going to start bringing my art into the shop.
Okay.
Now, when she started bringing her art into the shop was also the time where Instagram was getting a little bit hotter. Her friends started collecting art. My friends started collecting art. You know, we're in the city, we're millennials, older millennial, but we're out and we say, hey, bring your art to our shop. Mm-hmm. And then when they come in and start seeing art, like their own art, then they're like, wait, this is a little bit different than the frame shops we usually go to.
Yeah.
They don't even know who Hebrew is, who J.C. Rivera is, who Saint Rock is, who 𝗙𝗢𝗢𝗄𝗎 is, who Nina Chanel is, who 𝗙𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗏 is. But this shop not only knows who they are, but kind of collects them. That's the place I want to shop.
Yeah.
You see? And the business then turned more into what artists can we frame and put on Instagram to help them sell their own work. Not taking any cuts, not ever saying, hey, we want something from that. We just want the framing revenue, truly.
Yeah.
But if we can raise artist profiles through that, then it's a win-win. And it's just such business where the artists are your influencers, right? So the artists are coming to you to frame their work. The artists are promoting your shop. We're promoting their work. So it's just this matrimony. It's a perfect marriage. And it's something that other frame shops never embraced. Didn't embrace our city's artists, didn't embrace the Black and brown artists, didn't embrace the fashion culture, the music culture, the art culture of our city, and we're in the ground, you know, with it. We're out at every gallery. Every gallery opening there is, I take a bottle of wine, take vodka, take tequila, take frames, and make sure to congratulate them because they're raising their profile.
How long have you been involved in the business?
Truly, I grew up in the business since, I was like my son's age, 8, right? Nuts and bolts, inventory, whatever it may be. I'm 41 now. So it's 32 years of essentially, blood, sweat, and tears, where this business was what we needed to pay our rent back then. Heavily involved in the business since about 1998, I'd say. Since I was 16, 17, that's when my mind started working. Okay, what could we do? What could we do different? But it was really like when we put our stamp on Lincoln Park and moved to this location and created the location of our dreams. How do we get Kayla to do a mural? How do we get Max to do a mural? How do we make the whole artist community feel that they're a part of this store, that they built this store?
Okay.
This is our store, yes, but I never look at this as our store. It's a vessel for the entire community. An artist wants to hold an event, it becomes their store. An artist wants to use the space to, create their own work, it becomes their story, it becomes their inspiration. What's on Instagram is not ours, it's the artist's. And beyond that, it's the city's. So we essentially are that vessel for the artists, for the city, for whoever wants to use the store in whatever they want to use it. We just happen to have the idea to create something like this for them. And I think that was really important.
How do you think the community finds that out? Like if you're working with the artists, they can feel it, they can see what you're doing, it's clear.
Yeah.
How do you convey that?
You know what? In any business, you always say word of mouth is what you have. 80 5-star Google reviews, nonstop 5-star Yelp reviews. Everybody telling their friends, hey, you know about Frame Chicago? Do you know Shafiq? Do you know Alicia? They're with it. They get it. Instagram, it's the biggest frame shop Instagram profile, not just in Chicago, across the states. The followers, the engagement, there's nothing bigger in terms of a frame shop being followed. Frame shops are not traditionally followed.
Yeah, who's following a frame shop?
Yeah, but the reels, 20,000 reels, the views, the relikes, the comments, the posts. So the best thing of this is zero advertising. It's all authentic. It's from our passion. And when someone walks in, they see these guys are looking to essentially put the best piece together they can for me. They're not looking for the highest price. They're not looking just to get me in and get me out. If you spend $100,000 or if you spend $100, we're treating you the same exact way. So the authenticity and the passion comes out from the minute you walk in the door. In fact, from outside the door when you see the mural. Okay, there's something different here. We're also lucky because we're on North and Clybourne. I look at North and Clybourne actually as the true center of the city. The reason I say that is because if I tell somebody in Harvey, Illinois, or if I tell somebody in Hyde Park, or if I tell somebody in Evanston or Rogers Park, we're in North and Clybourne, nobody will ever say, oh my God, that's so far. Everybody knows North and Clybourne off the red line, the Apple Store's there, Crain Barrel's there, it's right off the highway. And I think that location for us, we've known from the beginning, but it's grown over time, that North and Clybourne to me is the true center of the city. Who's going to go to a frame shop on State and Madison? Yeah. That's the center. You don't even want to go there, right? But in a neighborhood where there's parking, you go to Lincoln Park.
There's other things you can do here too.
A lot of things. Yeah. We have guys that come in, go to Sweet Green after, guys that come in, go to Crain Barrel after, guys that come in and in between their Apple Store visit. So those sorts of things help us a lot. Yeah.
Where were you before this location?
We've always been in the city. We've always been in North and Clybourne or Clark and Fullerton. 2364 Clark and North Clark Street. Great location, great neighborhood location, but you're not pulling the city on Clark and Fullerton. Again, it's a traffic nightmare, hard to find parking. North and Clybourne really for us was lucky in many ways. My dad always has this knack of finding the right locations in the right place at the right rent at the time. And we saw a different part of the city. Since then, we've kind of woven ourselves into this block.
A lot of people look at framing and they think of it as something that's expensive. I spent all this money on this piece of art, and now I'm spending a fraction of that, a large fraction of that on the frame itself. How do you justify that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So what we get a lot is people saying, I bought this art for $500. Now you're saying you want to put $1,000 frame on it, right? So if the size of that art was the same and you spent $500,000 on that art, the frame would cost the same. So the frame doesn't change based on the art that you brought in, or the cost doesn't change based on the art you brought in. A. B, what the frame actually does is essentially it conserves your art piece to make sure that there's absolutely no fading, and it enhances the way your art looks, and it gives you a way to create art as furniture and put it on your wall. When you walk into someone's house and there's nothing on their walls, no matter what their furniture looks like, the place looks bare. The furniture actually for your walls is the art itself. And we essentially are creating this custom furniture piece as opposed to just creating a frame around your art.
Well, some of your framing is so beautiful. It doesn't take away from the art, it accentuates it, but it makes you think like, it's not just about the art.
Yeah.
It's about how you frame it.
Yeah.
You know, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what we say is we've created framing as art, you know? So it's enhancing your piece and creating framing as the art. Yeah.
So when I see something like this, or it has these extra pieces, how much does that increase the cost?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we do is when customers walk in, we do three things. We say, look, we can show you a basic option, you know, white matte, white frame, black matte, black frame, or we have a whole roster of all the different frames we have. Or what we can do is we can show you the simple option with a little bit of a heavier frame.
Okay.
Or what we can do is we can show you how Frame Chicago does it. And they look on the wall and they get it right away. Most of the time they came in because they wanted to do it the way that Frame Chicago does it, right? What we've found is that our customers have multiple framers that they go to, but they come to us for specific reasons. Now, in terms of what it adds to the cost, you know, something like this, regular frame, $300. Something like this, a little bit of an exquisite frame, $700. Something like this, hand painted with a simple frame like this, you're probably about $1,200 or $1,300.
Okay.
So it can triple or quadruple what the cost is. But what it does to it is it makes your piece a one of one. Nobody else in America, nobody else in the globe is going to have something like this around your 𝗙𝗢𝗢𝗣𝗍 or your Hebrew Brantley or whatever you're bringing in. And it becomes a real talking point when people come over, or when you're enjoying your piece, you're enjoying the piece that the way the artist intended it and another artist accentuated it. The screw coming all the way out.
Yeah. I mean, you can stare at these all day.
Yeah. Yeah, these are amazing. I mean, 𝗙𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗍 is our favorite artist. One of the brightest stories in the city, and when you add this to her art, it really just accentuates it. Yeah.
So I see all these different materials, and I see like classic to bolder, alternative, and newer age stuff.
Yeah.
How does the cost range from those different things?
Yeah, that's a good question. So cost at any store is going to be different. The one thing that we do to control cost and to control how much our clients are spending versus other frame shops and such, is we tend to buy thousands upon thousands upon thousands of feet of inventory. So what we do is we buy inventory based on what the styles are in the market, based on what we feel is going to work for the clients that we have, and also based on, you know, what we're seeing are the upcoming trends. So it could be that if we have something in stock and it's a large molding, it's much less expensive than going for something that we may not have in stock. So it's a competitive advantage that we have a lot of space to continue to essentially keep a massive inventory. But prices do range really on size, right? So the larger the frames are, the more wood is being used. Likely there's some hand carvings in there, more lacquer that's being used to paint on the frame. And those frames tend to be a bit more expensive than your traditional, you know, 1 inch or 2 inch blacks.
So walk me through that. What's going to increase those costs?
Good question. So the one factor actually that you may not think of that increases your cost is the type of glass you choose.
I saw that right there when I walked in.
Yeah,
and I was like, whoa, it's day and night.
Yeah.
It looks like it's the same thing.
Absolutely. So there's two glasses. There's UV glass, which is
grab that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what we have is two different glasses. One is going to be your UV glass. The other is museum. Both are 99% UV protectant. That's the key. You bring your diploma in, your wedding photo in, a piece of art. You don't want it to fade. And there's UV light in everything. It just doesn't mean sunlight. It could be UV light from any light that's in your home.
So there's UV lights from just these bulbs here?
Even from these bulbs.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just natural sunlight.
Natural sunlight, any reflection, any of that can essentially deteriorate your piece.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen it.
Yeah,
you can definitely see it. You have a piece of art. You leave it on one wall, and like the sun's always hitting that wall, and then bam.
Yeah, we've seen that. We've seen a lot of people bring things in over the years, and you see the complete fade once you pull the mat off.
Okay.
So the two things that can increase price, or the big thing, is going to be if you pick museum glass versus UV glass.
It's a day and night difference. I mean, there's no reflection in
Invisible.
that. Yeah.
Invisible. So you would go to somebody's house, and if they have
I
museum
literally
glass,
walked up to this, and I was like, I was trying to touch it to see where the layering was.
That's why we put the donut in there.
Yeah.
You know, hoping that somebody tries to grab the donut. But the thing is, you go to somebody's house and you notice, is it UV glass, is it museum glass? And what happens is it pushes the color from the art out. And it's unbelievable. So the glass difference right there is probably like a 2x difference.
Okay.
So if something was $300 with the UV glass, based on the glass price, switching to museum, you're probably closer to about $500. So that's a big factor. The other factor is, are you choosing to add a mat or not, and how many mats?
And the mat is
Exactly, the second portion here. Now, the reason why the mat's expensive is maybe the cost of the mat itself is not much, but you're increasing the cost of everything else because the size increases. So now there's more glass, there's more frame, now you've added a mat, there's more foam.
You're increasing the size of everything because you're adding the mat, because otherwise we'd be framed like this.
Exactly. So that's your second factor. Did we choose a mat? Did we choose one mat or two mats? Did we choose a thick mat or a thin mat? Did we choose an art brushed mat or not? All of those would be additional factors. So based on size, again, it could add $80, it could add $200, it could add $400. Now, all of these options, your local framer would be able to say, we're going to start at this price. We could get to this price based on your budget. Maybe we can end up somewhere here. And then the third and final factor is always going to be the frame. And people call us all the time and say, I have a 16 by 20, how much will it cost? And no joke, we'll say it starts at 150, it could go to 15,000.
Okay.
And then the person gets the point on the phone is, unfortunately, you're going to have to come in and we'll pick it together. But I'm sure I can get you somewhere around 300 and give you about 5 dozen options.
Okay.
So we do that all the time. It's a common question you get every day. I got a 16 by 20, how much is it? I got a 30 by 40, how much is it? I have a canvas, I want to stretch it, how much is it? I have a jersey, I want to frame, how much is it? And we give those ranges and then we say, but we can probably get you in a really good spot around 300 or 400.
So the best answer is just always come in.
Oh, yeah. Always come in because you are going to spend more than you thought you would. Unfortunately or fortunately, and you're going to get something that you would have never thought you would have gotten.
Yes.
Right? So you're going to come in and see something on the wall and say, you know what, for a few $100, this is going to be on my wall forever. Let's roll with it.
From a business perspective, I think this is a really good business because you're never going to be priced out by Amazon or an online retailer. They're just never going to be able to do what you're offering.
Yeah.
So you offer that niche part of the market, which is the market you want to be in, the higher end of the market, for people who really care about their art and want to bring it here and get this custom experience for their custom piece of art to go in their custom home. It all flows together, right?
Exactly.
It's a certain profile of a person that's going to shop here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's why we had to build the new shop this way.
Yeah.
So when you walk in, you feel that. You walk in, everything in here is custom. There's a place for everything in here. Every inch of this place was built by my dad and my sister. We're going to walk in here. What do you see? You walk in here. What do you see? You see this piece of art. What's happening with it? And it makes you feel really a part of the frame shop and a part of the art. And honestly, it makes you want to spend and do something a bit different. And that's the experience that we offer.
The equipment must be interesting because, on this wall, I see all the different types of frames, but then you have it back somewhere and you guys have to cut these down. And what does that look like? So
that's another big thing, our unique selling proposition. So our USP is different than any other frame shop. And I say in America, I mean, I don't even know who our competitors are because it's not on my mind. What's on my mind is what my clients want, right? So speed, clients, artists particular, hey, I need something by Thursday. We'll stop production on anything else and get it done for an artist. So the speed is always something that's important. 24-hour, 48-hour, 1 week, 2 week, when you need it, we'll figure out a way to get it done. No other frame shop can do that. And the reason we can do that is, we talked about this earlier, is we keep a heavy inventory. We've been doing this for 41 years. There's 17 people here. Every single one of them can essentially pick up, go on the saw, join a frame, and cut the glass. And if nobody can do it, I can do it, my dad can do it. That's the part of the business when you have a small business that anybody can get something done when it needs to get done.
Yeah.
We'll stay till midnight. We'll stay till 2 a.m. We'll start at 6 a.m. Nobody's going to stop us, right? And for us, the other thing is we had to create a workshop in the same space that we operate. Other frame shops will send it out to other people. Other frame shops will have something 40 miles away.
Notice that too. There's a lot of people, in so many businesses, there's middlemen, right? They get a storefront, got some frames on the wall.
Exactly.
But then it's all happening elsewhere. I mean, dry cleaners do it, framers do it, mattress stores do it. Like so many different businesses do that. Yeah. And you're all on site in one place. On site. All in one family.
That's
very cool.
That's it. You walk in the front, we take it to the back, the framer does it, we bring it back from the back and give it back to you. A lot of times I take my customers, and we'll walk there as well. I take my customers and I say, hey, listen, before you even open your piece of art, let me show you the operation. Take them to the back. Hey, I know this was a Picasso you brought in, a Hebrew that you brought in. Don't worry, it's not leaving my site. Everything's locked when we're done. The security dates come down. Alarms everywhere. Downstairs we have a
Good
storage
point. I
room.
wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah, so tell me more about the security.
I mean, so of course we have cameras everywhere, inside, out. There isn't a place in here that you wouldn't see a camera. Monitored 24/7. Beyond that, we have security. Beyond that, we have security
Here's
gates.
your bathroom. That's a problem.
Yeah, yeah, breach. Beyond that, we have the security gates. In the back, we have security doors. Behind that, we have security in front of the garage. So everything for us is making sure it's a secure place. Now, we're at a place where somebody could bring in $1 million piece of art. We're at a place where people are sending stuff from Art Basel that are 200,000 pieces, 250,000 art pieces. So we had to be equipped for that. And then beyond that, increasing our insurance policy, being in a place that this is a center of art, we need to make sure that nobody can get in, but us, unless you have the security codes and keys. The police are well aware, security is well aware that this is a place you want to monitor.
Getting into this business, I mean, being a kid, you're like, well, framing is sexy. That's what I want to do when I'm older. I want to be a framer.
Yeah.
Did it take convincing, or just because you were involved from such a young age, did you see this as something I wanted to change and evolve? Because I know your dad's shop, if it wasn't for you two, it wouldn't look like this.
Yeah, if it wasn't for my sister in particular.
Yeah.
She's got the style and such. I mean, there was many days growing up saying that this seems to be an odd business, right? What is a frame shop? What are we actually doing? Oh, I don't care about art. I'm not as excited to go there. And also it was a bit different because I grew up in it, so it was all I knew. So everything else seemed sexy. Oh, my dad and my friends have Dunkin' Donuts. I could go there and eat donuts instead of making frames, right? Or my friends have gas stations, or all this stuff. But it was over time that you realize that the connection you have with the customer at a frame shop is different. You're building a lasting piece of furniture for them. The connection that they have with their art, and for you to see that story, is different. You don't get that when you're serving a donut. You don't get that when you're giving gas. In here, you're essentially talking to the customer about the piece of art, whether it be their diploma, their wedding photo, and you're building these lasting connections. And over time, the goal was always to be more part of the community. And the way we're part of the community now, essentially every single day we're looking to see what we can do, how we can bring the community in, how we can help artists. And now that's become my mission. It's less about the revenue, it's less about the bottom line. It's what can we do to create this store as the epicenter for our community, for art. And I think we've gotten there.
Did you always appreciate art?
Always. My dad was an artist. We'd always have these different things where he'd be drawing pictures of us or drawing pictures of scenery. We appreciated art that way. I've always been into design, into fashion, into different colors and such. And then over time, moving back to the city after going to school in Champaign, I started noticing more murals and really started appreciating, high fashion, interior design, and also arts.
How do you go about connecting with the artists?
We're lucky. So we have a place in Chicago. It's called Soho House. Soho is a big part of my community. It's a part of my daily life. That is actually where I believe creativity starts in many ways. Soho's done a really good job of curating a creative program where artists come together. So Soho is a great space to meet artists, where artists know, hey, that's the framer, go to him. And once you're in with one artist community, other artists just end up flocking to you. So artists are a very tight community, fraternity, sorority-like, and they say, hey, I'm getting my mats done with Shafiq. I'm getting my frames done with Frame. Frame is showing my work. And then what we started doing is a monthly event. And our monthly events are DJ, open bar, print release, original art release. They're highly curated events. They're invite only. And when you're here, there's a line outside. And then it was like, what is this frame shop? And then we'd say, it's not a frame shop, it's a vibe. Just come in, enjoy the art, enjoy the drinks, enjoy the music, and you start curating that month after month after month. And before you know it, you have the whole scene behind you.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we did is unlike a gallery, and look, galleries are our big clients, and I believe that gallerists are really the lifeblood of what's happening with artists. Our whole thing was never to take a massive cut from the artist. I mean, at the end of the day, our business model is to make money from framing. So when the artists are bringing their work in, we're not saying we're going to take 50% of that or 40% of that, whatever it may be. We're making sure that it's framed nicely, which artists don't have to pay for. It's displayed in a place where people are walking in every day. And it's promoted on Instagram and it's talked about. We become the storytellers of the artist. The artist is not here. So we have to understand what the artist was trying to get out of this and what the notion was. So becoming the storytellers and the stewards really helped us kind of gather that whole art community.
That's a big responsibility.
It is, yeah.
And you're well spoken.
Yeah.
I can tell you can do that well.
Yeah.
Was that hard to get used to?
So there's two things with that. there's the artist's story, and then there's your personal story of what you're seeing within the art, right? So, I, of course, tell as much of the artist story as I can, or at least about the artist. And then I always switch it and I say, this is what 𝗘𝗧𝗢𝗪 likely was looking to get out of the piece, and this is what the, paragraph says about it. But when I see the piece, I see something a little bit different. Let me walk you through what I see. And that kind of allows the client or potential prospective client, or it could just be a patron walking by, to start thinking about what their story is with that piece of art. And then that's when you start getting everybody's story together, where 𝗘𝗧𝗢𝗪 started with it and we kind of added to it, because each one of these pieces means something different to everyone else.
So are these all fixtures, or are they for sale? Everything that you have here?
Yeah, so they kind of range. Some of them are our personal collection. Some of them are for sale. Some of them are just displays to kind of show the different ways we can do art. We have a show coming up on September 10th, big show with an artist, 𝗙𝗔𝗙𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗘𝗗. And then we have our 1-year anniversary coming up with Michael Lavelle Wines and Raspy Rivera. And both of those shows will be very intentional with merchandise, art, and for sale items. And we'll have both of those on display for a full month. And the goal is for the artists to get as much revenue as they possibly can with us displaying their art framed. So right now we're kind of like mid-show. Okay. So being mid-show, we put a lot of our work up and just ways to kind of show different work displayed. But there's always work here for sale. Artists come here with portfolios and drop them to us. Prominent artists. And say, show this to your clients if they ask my name. And we frame it at no cost. And if the client wants to buy it, then we'll take the framing portion and we'll give the artist their portion. Got it. So there's always works for sale here. And we really focus on Chicago-based artists.
So that's smart. You can frame it out. You can make it look the way you professionally know how to make it look.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this. I wouldn't know how to do this. This is one of those things where I don't want my opinion as part of it.
Yeah.
If someone's building real estate, I'm going to give you opinions all day long.
Yeah.
Like thinking of the story and how it's going to look. I can do that with a building. With these frames, it'd be like, here, you just give it back to me. You let me know when it's ready. Yeah. And that's really nice because you can do that with the artist. Yeah. I'm just looking at this. So this looks like it's floating off the back. Yeah. That's a really cool look. How do you do that?
Yeah, so it's as simple as you would think. We just take in the back, there's a piece of acid-free foam core, and then we put an acid-free linen tape. So everything here is, you could take it off and get the print in the same exact way that you brought it to us. Yeah. That's the key with everything we have. Because you want it in mint condition. So we just do that and apply that float technique. We do that with a lot of work, actually.
I like seeing the rough edges too.
Yes.
A lot of times you see the mat over it, it's covering it. Yeah. This gives it a raw and grittier look. Yeah. While it's being refined on the outside of it. Yeah. So it's giving you a juxtaposition of both sides, which I think really looks good.
No, good call in seeing that. Yeah, those distressed edges are really popular. They're called deckled edges. Deckled. And when the artist goes to the printer, in Chicago, we're really lucky. We have some of the best printers in the nation. They particularly say, I want a deckled edge or I want a non-deckled edge. When it's a deckled edge, we always tell the client, let's go ahead and do a float. And if you want to do a mat around it, we can, but let's show it the way that the artist wanted to show it.
What on this wall is for sale?
These would be, this was about 4,000.
That's framed and everything?
Framed and everything, take it to go. Actually, all of them are right around 4,000. Okay. The key with these is these were really special. So this was right before the entire hype cycle had started with 𝗘𝗧𝗢𝗪𝗪. Everybody knew she was going to be a great artist. She had editions of 40 that were at Line Dot, a gallery just in Westtown. And at the time that she released these were about $400 to $450 each. Okay. If you were to go on eBay just to get these prints, would probably be about $3,000 to $4,000. Okay. So just seeing the trajectory of her work from 2017 to now, that's the great thing about these art, is you're buying the art for the art, 100%. You're buying it because you want to support the artist. Art is an investment. Now what we're doing is we're protecting your investment. And just to see how these prices have gone up over time, especially during COVID, where we saw the peak of art prices, it makes a lot of sense that you're going to put a nice frame around it and protect that piece of art. And you could see with these have gone up almost 10x. So of course you want to show that proudly because it's an investment, and who knows, at some point you may need to cash that investment in, and at least this way you know that it was protected.
COVID affected a lot of businesses and it increased a lot of assets. Yeah. So that was art as well?
Oh yeah. COVID was the best thing. I mean, the worst thing that happened for all of us, but the best thing that happened for many different types of businesses. Yeah. For us, we moved during COVID. We got a lot of ideas during COVID. We came together as a family during COVID. and customers wanted to essentially beautify their walls and beautify their space because of all the Zoom meetings. Everything that you were doing was essentially a WebEx. You didn't want to go on a WebEx and just show a blurred wall.
Became a new brag.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what's my Zoom background?
Exactly.
What's yours?
You know, so do you want to put a fake Zoom background, or do you want to put one with art behind your walls? And that's where, you know, it's not 100% of the crowd that's doing that, but even if 2 or 3% of the city is doing that, that's enough for us to have, you know, customers that are coming in left and right. And at that time, some people had a lot of money. The market was at a high, crypto was at a high, and they were kind of taking it out and buying pieces of art that they wouldn't have bought before. And with that, they were buying the frames along with it. So we saw the art market overall saw a massive boom during COVID, and that kind of infiltrated back into small businesses like us.
Is that stabilized?
You know what? It's we're lucky, knock on wood.
Yeah.
We had some of our best months during COVID, but a lot of that has remained very steady. So I think what it is with just more people knowing about us, having more events, being more involved in the city. We're getting a really good mix of gallery business, corporate business, along with, of course, all the consumers that continue to come in.
So you mentioned your dad was an artist. How did he get into this?
I mean, it's a long story short. We had started in the engraving business in our basement in 1981 in Wheaton. One of our biggest clients was a frame shop.
Hold on, but
Yeah.
how do you even get started in engraving?
Engraving business, my dad started because he was playing table tennis at church and they needed trophies.
Okay.
And they couldn't find a place that could get trophies done quick enough. And like how all businesses start, you see a point where you're like, there's some contention here, there's some friction. How come I can't find a trophy for a tournament I have on Saturday?
Yeah.
Where do I find it? Once he found it, he kind of analyzed the business and said, this might be something that I could do in my basement. Found the suppliers and essentially started a trophy business within a few months with a very small investment. Now he became one of 2 engravers in Wheaton, Illinois. So back then it was just how big is your yellow page ad?
Yeah.
So whatever we had, we put in the yellow page ad. Sometimes we'd go bigger, sometimes we'd go smaller, sometimes we'd go 3 lines, sometimes we'd go, a quarter page. Then you got the customers coming in. Now you get the customers coming in and a frame shop keeps coming in to engrave these 1x3 plates for frames that they're doing. At that point, my dad, being curious, said, what kind of business are you in? Ended up, his name was Harold, unfortunately. I mean, sadly, he passed away. He was a great guy to our family, one of my dad's best friends. And he told my dad, he said, this is a good business. And based on what you're currently doing, maybe this is something you should be involved in. And my dad took it to heart and opened our first frame shop in St. Charles when I was in high school. And then just kind of continued on to that progression. Ended up buying a shop in Lincoln Park in the late 90s.
Did you buy an existing shop?
He bought an existing shop in Lincoln Park, completely transformed it. Then bought this place on Clybourne, 1701 North Clybourne. We started getting more heavily involved. I got heavily involved after college. And then slowly but surely kind of found our way into this. So we've seen everything in framing. And we really have framed everything. And we just know the market. We know the product, and we're really kind of embedded in the overall framing community as well. Everyone knows who at least my father is. He's kind of looked at as like the godfather of framing. Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many events. How do you keep up to date with all of that? What's happening? Where are the different galleries?
Yeah.
How many galleries are in Chicago? Do you know?
Yeah. Okay, so we keep up with a dozen galleries, really.
Okay.
How many galleries in Chicago? There's over 200.
Okay.
And it's ever changing, right? Now, Chicago, we're so lucky. I mean, this city, even saying the word Chicago when I'm out of town, I'm full of pride, right? The city is built on arts. The city is built on music. The city is built on food. And that's all a big part of our culture. Best restaurants, best music venues, sports teams, and art is really the epicenter of that, and it brings it all together, right? So we tend to focus a lot on what was called street art, contemporary art, black art, brown art. There's about 20 galleries probably that really focus on that, modern contemporary art. So we keep up with those openings, and there's another one that's every month. The easiest ways to do that and the ways to keep up with any galleries and artists is to follow all of them on Instagram. They're consistently updating where they're showing, how they're showing. The galleries are always, updating their Instagram as well. And before the shows, they send out a PDF. They call it a PDF. And it's every piece of art that's going to be in that show. So we're getting, 20 PDFs a month, and we're able to see all of the different arts that are in these shows. And then we go to these shows to collect. We go to these shows to support. And we go to these shows to just be impressed with really the art that's in our city.
Are there any up and coming artists right now that you see potential in?
There's so many. There's a group in Chicago called Art House, and they really manage a lot of different up and coming artists. So they have one. His name is Courtney Collins. On Instagram, it's the Collins Boy. They have another one. His name is Robert Moore. B Moore. He does this adaptation on Peanuts characters and kind of brings them into modern life.
I think I've seen those.
Yeah.
Those are cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And really gives them an Asian face or a brown face or a black face, really kind of inclusive.
Now I know I've seen it.
Yep. There's another gentleman, King Rello. Actually, we have some of his work here. He came out of this Fat Tiger workshop, which he started, and he's been in the art community for over 20 years. And a lot of the work that he does is also these adaptations of representation. A black Billy the Space Kid, a black Minnie Mouse called Ruby, a black Mickey Mouse called Ozzy. Because the thing is, when we were growing up, and I say we as a person of color, what we saw on TV was not brown people and black people. What we saw in cartoons was not brown people and black people. And now when we're seeing this art come in that shows our culture in superheroes that we grew up seeing that were white, makes me and my kids believe, you know what, there's more that you can do. You can be a superhero and be cultured. And that's a lot of the art that you're seeing come out of our city, is what was at one point pushed down is now coming up in art and giving you this confidence. So growing up every day and seeing something like this, or growing up every day and seeing that, gives you a moment of pride. And that's what makes me so proud of the artists from our city.
What's it like connecting with different artists? I mean, artists have interesting reputations.
Yeah. That's a good question. You're going to get everything. You're going to get artists that come in and have seen everything, and have been potentially jaded from whether it be gallerists or other frame shops or collectors, that will come in with a little bit of a tougher persona. You're going to get other artists that come in that are starting out and that are open to all of the feedback. And then you're going to get other artists that are so business minded that come in, know exactly what they want to spend, exactly what they need to charge, and exactly how they're going to make their money from every opening that they have. But the one commonality that you're going to see outside of the way that they're running their businesses is the creativity and the way they see things. It's unreal. And it's not just through the art. It's the way they look at politics. It's the way that they look at our city. It's the way that they look at our community. Artists know that what they're putting on paper is more than just that piece of paper. They're looking to get stories out. And the stories are always inspiring. So the position that we're in to essentially be talking to almost every prominent artist in the city and knowing their story is honestly, it's priceless. I don't know what you could pay someone to be involved in a situation like that. People would probably pay to be involved in that situation. It's unreal. So the artists are truly inspiring to us, and really make us want to do even more and more and more when it comes to framing.
So do you do anything outside of framing?
Personally?
Yeah.
So I work at a company called Mintel. I've been working there for my 15th year is Tuesday.
Okay.
So there's a commercial team that I run there. So we have this competitive intelligence product, like our largest clients like Apple and Chase. And what we do is essentially we take all of the offer data, all the pricing data, all the creative data that's in the market, and we essentially apply a taxonomy to it, simplify it, put it into a database, and Apple has the ability to go in and say, I need to understand what all my competitors are doing. How much are they spending? What is the creative? What are the offers? And then we have like our consulting and analyst team that kind of give them where the white space is, create presentations and such. So we're really busy around quarterly earnings. We're really busy around product launches. And then we're busy day to day kind of giving them those updates. So that's what I do on day to day.
So you mentioned Kayla's hype cycle.
Mm-hmm.
How does that start? Where does that end?
Yeah.
You hear about gallery owners or the curators at the galleries having control over art, and they're responsible for bringing it to the public. Mm-hmm. What's that relationship like, and how does that work?
So I'm happy you brought that up, because that relationship is in the middle of a massive change. Instagram has democratized everything. And there's artists that are saying that gallerists are the people of old. And the
could see that.
future, yep, and the future, and really what we're seeing is you can sell on your own, you can be independent, you can show your work on Instagram, and as long as you get a couple of reposts from some prominent folks, as long as you get some engagement from your reels and from your stories, showing the type of work that you have, and maybe if you got a repost from a celebrity or something, you're on your way. And we're seeing that more and more and more, where artists kind of seemingly are coming out of nowhere in a way, but they've been artists forever. They finally have just gotten their Instagram presence together and built a follower account where they're getting people kind of saying, I need that next piece of work. When's your next piece of work coming up? And they can't keep up with the demand. Now, that doesn't mean that gallerists, there's no space for them. The galleries that we've seen, like Vertical Gallery in particular, there's 𝗣𝗥𝗢𝗣𝗣𝗥 Gallery that just popped up. They essentially are embracing that. So they also have an Instagram presence. They essentially want to grow the artist Instagram presence. And together, they're forming a really great union for the galleries that are kind of keeping up with the times. So I don't want to say it's easier than ever to be an artist and sell your work, because it's never easy.
I'd say there's more people that are exposed. So it's harder for someone to get focused or to get noticed.
Harder for people to get noticed. Also harder for, there's so many more artists that are in the market. And it's hard to understand price points. You know, like it's market price.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so somebody would say, well, this is worth $5,000. Somebody would say it's worth $500. So if the artist doesn't have that comp on what they've sold in the past, then it's hard for them to get off their feet and start selling more and more of these pieces of art. You know, so it's still a business, but it's easier to get your art out than ever before.
What do you think of NFTs?
You know, I was big on NFTs actually, and I'm a little jaded because you know, everything's crashed.
Yeah.
So you know, I bought into the hype cycle. I still believe in the technology, but I think just like anything else in crypto or even anything else in the market, there's people that really took advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for the projects that were really built well, they will remain. And the projects that kind of had these rug pulls where they created an NFT, they got out there, they sold a bunch of them, and then they pulled the utilities away, they hopefully won't be there in the future. So what we've seen with crypto and NFTs is this massive correction, and hopefully just the best projects kind of come out, and we can start all believing in NFTs, the utility behind them, and really what they can do for everyone. The good thing about NFTs, I'll tell you real quickly, is, you know, once you sell an NFT and you continue to sell it, the artist makes that money in perpetuity.
I was just about to say that.
Exactly.
It can be set up that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the appealing ways from an artist, that you're always going to be compensated every time it sells.
Every time.
It's a new concept.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Yeah.
should they? I think they should maybe.
Yeah.
But where is that money coming? So it's taking from, what are the percentages? I bet it depends on where you keep it or how it's done.
Yeah, it depends on how much ETH goes back and forth. It's set up from the beginning.
Okay.
But you know, I mean, look, that at the end of the day, it's a product, right?
Yeah.
The artist is putting out a product, and it's a product that has an everlasting lifeline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and for a lot of artists where the revenue is not there, this is a way for them to make that consistent revenue to hopefully pay their mortgage, pay their bills while they're creating other pieces of art.
It is the interesting thing about art, because if I write a book or make a song, I'm going to get royalties off of that.
Yeah, audiobook or
Yep, anything, right? Any piece of IP. And then if you create art, you can if you're selling the prints, but how many prints can you make?
Yeah.
You talked about prints. So prints, you said we were a good place for prints. Why is that? And when I see a print, I mean, are these prints?
Yeah, these are all prints. These are all artist proofs.
So I don't see like a 1 out of 500 or anything like that.
These particular, they don't
those
have
words
it.
work.
So these particular, they don't have it. But the way that it works is,
I see it right here. This one has 1 out of
1 of 40, 1 of 50. Yeah. So the artist tends to create one piece of original work. Based on their entire body of work, they decide which ones they want to run into prints. Based on the ones they run into prints, then they sit down with their team, or they sit down with perhaps some friends or colleagues and say, should we do a 25 run, a 50 run, a 100 run, a 1,000 run? Based on their budget.
Interest.
Right. Interest. And a lot of times you see artists that have tons of interest doing runs of 50. Because
that's what I would do.
Exactly. Because then for that run of 50, they could probably get 3,000 or 4,000 for each. And at that run of 50, that's $120,000 to $130,000 in revenue. You'd take the money out that, you know, what it costs for the print. And that seems to be a great run, you know, for one print. Other artists, you have them going with runs of 250, 300, or 1,000, which kind of dilutes the market a bit, because you think there's so many out there.
And how many more times are they going to do that?
Yeah.
Right? Because you do one run now doesn't prevent you from doing one in the future.
Yeah, it doesn't. Artists tend to do one print, one run.
Okay.
And then the next month or the next quarter, they may come out with something new. What we see with artists is they may do either 2 to 3 drops per year. Some artists do a bit more than that. Some do 1 to 2 per every few years and focus on their original art. But prints allow the masses, and I'm saying masses, but 50 to 100 people, to have works of art by their favorite artists that hold some value. Because the originals in some cases are $20,000, $30,000. The prints would be $1,000, a bit more attainable. And for us, the biggest part of our business is when there is a new print that comes out, right? We'll also put it on Instagram. We'll talk to the artist about it. We'll frame it. And, our hope is that those prints come back to Chicago from across America to be framed here. So the ever-evolving print world is a great place for a frame shop to be, because there's always new art that's looking to be framed.
What does the process look like to have a print created?
So we did a print release with 𝗙𝗘𝗢𝗣𝗏 in April, one of our best parties we had. All the parties have been great. So it was this original that we have here. We created a big print. Yeah, that's the original. So
that's like 10 feet by 10 feet.
Yeah, that's like 8 by 10. Yeah, that's probably the biggest pink frame in the city. Actually, it is. There's nobody has a bigger one, and that was our goal by that, just to show the beauty of having a big frame around something, in particular a bold color like pink. So we worked with Pop Inc., who is the industry standard of printmaking, not just in Chicago, in America. I keep coming back to this, but Chicago is the epicenter of art in America. It's such a breeding ground for like ancillary art businesses, but also the artist community.
Walking in here, I would have never guessed you were going to say that. Just people think of art, they think of everything. They think of the coast.
Yeah,
right. It's
like New York and LA. Yeah. And what you'll see, and now I think everybody will do a bit more research, is New York and LA focus on what's happening in Chicago. Right. And as our artists get bigger, some stay in Chicago, some go to New York or LA just to get even bigger, which makes sense. It's like any job: corporate finance, lawyers, actors. You have to leave Chicago at some point. But our artists have made a really big point of making sure that everybody knows that they are from Chicago, and that's where you get the 𝗍𝗢𝗢𝗄𝗎s, the Nina Chanels, Tender J, some of these massive artists. But I digress on that. With this, we had Pop Inc. come in here. They had to take 100 photos of the original. Every inch of it, they took a photo of it to match the color. Then they went back into their process and looked for those exact colors in their paint set, or created those colors to create it. And then what they had to do was they had to create a screen. So they created a screen for every color that was within the piece. And just how a screen print works, they had 50. This piece had more screen prints than any piece they'd ever done. So they essentially stamped it 50 different times, and the last stamp gets you that full piece.
So it's almost like creating a mold for something.
It's like creating a mold.
That mold creation process is the expensive part, and then having productions past that are much more scalable. Is that right?
Exactly. And that takes 40, 50, 60 man hours to get to that mold.
Yeah, I bet.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, each one still takes about an hour to do because you're doing the pressing. So you take 100, that was a run of 100. So that whole process probably took 300 or 400 hours. On top of that, deckled papers, thick paper, best quality paint. So you could see, $1,000 for a piece, $1,000 is not going to the artist. $1,000 for the piece, there's probably 300 or 400 just in production.
Yeah.
And these artists like 𝗙𝗘𝗢𝗣𝗏𝗍𝗢𝗡, 𝗍𝗢𝗢𝗡, they want to do the best production. Other artists that are starting out may just go to Kinko's. Which is totally fine, and that's where these artists had started. But as you continue to be the best, you want to make sure that you have best quality across the board, and that includes the frame.
Where do you see this going in the future?
That's a good question. I talk to myself a lot, being in the corporate world and having other businesses, about scalability. I didn't think that we could scale this much out of one shop. I always thought that you could do a lot out of one shop, but I thought maybe you need a location in Hyde Park, a location in the West Loop, a location in Bucktown. Thankfully, I'm past that. We are the destination. If you have a piece of art anywhere in the city or anywhere in America, you're coming to us at this point, which is a great feeling. I do think that there's room to do something like this in a city like LA, in Brooklyn, in Atlanta, perhaps in Dallas or Houston, to become the epicenter of art for those communities, and really kind of bring out the Black and brown artists in those communities as well. But that sort of scale, I'm not sure I have the interest, because the reason that makes this business and this particular location, and what we're doing work, is our authenticity and passion behind our city. So it may not be that we scale, outwards, and we just continue to hammer in and focus on innovation and framing, working with more artists and seeing what the most we can do in every square inch here is.
This is really fun.
Yeah.
Very educational.
Yeah.
It went great. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
you.
Really appreciate you. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you been to the one in Lincoln Park?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have.
Great.
They sold Dom's to Kroger?
No.
Oh, Mariano's to
Mariano's.
Kroger. Yeah. No, Dom's, that's unbelievable.
And these are kind of the glory years, because
Yeah.
until it gets sold out, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Like, there used to be pianos in Mariano's, right?
Yeah.
Like the guy playing it.
Yeah. Oh, that's
No more. Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
So right now, like from a margin perspective, they're not making anywhere near what
Yeah.
like they could or should be.
Yeah.
Oh, these are cool. So when you have a corporate
Yeah.
client like that, they come
Yeah.
to you, and what are they looking for?
So I got to give it to the Cubs. Every corporate client isn't like this. The Cubs have made it a point to stay really true to Chicago businesses and Chicago small businesses. So the Cubs have been coming to us probably for 10 years now, on the updates to their clubhouse. So every year they have new players, and every year they need new frames for that.
That's a nice piece of business.
Yeah, it's great. It's really neat because like we've hung in their clubhouse. We have a special relationship with them where they, again, can rely on us. If they need something Friday, today's Wednesday, we'd get it done. That's one of those things where we'll stay overnight to get it done. There's no frame shop that would do that.
Yeah.
Very few businesses think that way, operate that way, or have that work ethic. The only way you get that is really with a family business. So with these, they came to us. They played at the Field of Dreams. So they essentially came to us needing what's going to amount to over 100 different pieces being framed, or these are going to be autographed and then framed. You can see here Ryan Sandberg, Andre Dawson, two of our favorite players. So seeing that and having this come into our store is like a full circle moment, right? Like Frame Chicago's work is in the most prominent galleries across the nation. Frame Chicago's work is in some of the most prominent athletes in the city. The work is there. Actors, actresses, musicians, the work is there. Wrigley Field, the work is there. And that's honestly, it's a moment of pride. You'll see here we have something up top that says "We Frame Chicago." That's like for our team, for our employees to walk in and kind of look at that and say, "Hey, listen, like I'm in a place that frames everything for the city." Since 1981, service, quality, craftsmanship, it all happens in this back room. Yeah.
So what happens on this table?
So the team is actually not here today, but what you will see is that we have 4 framers back here. We kind of separate the table into 4s, and everything that happens here is the frames are sawed down to size, so everything is custom. Then they are joined in our joiner, glued together. The mats are cut on a CNC, computerized mat machine, and the glass is cut on our glass cutter. So those are essentially the 4 components of what goes into a frame. And then here, what you'll have are different people at different stations that are either putting the mat together, putting the full frame together, working together to get objects done. And we have our shifts. They're from 10 to 7, and then we have a night shift that kind of comes in a few nights a week and kind of cleans up everything that wasn't done for the week.
Got it.
With the goal of having everything done within 7 days.
What's the training process like for someone to do this?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It really
There's so many different. There's 4 components.
Yeah.
There's more to that.
There's more to that.
And then the measuring out front just to get it right to begin with. Does someone bring the art and then the art stays here until it's done, or does someone take it with?
No.
Okay.
No, everything stays till it's done. And everything has to be right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. So everything had to be measured right. The right materials that were ordered or likely in stock. The right materials that were pulled to cut the frame. And there's measurements that go into each part of the process. So the frame is measured, the glass is measured, the foam is measured, the mat's measured, the wire is measured. If one thing goes wrong in there, you're redoing that. So truly, there is a lot of spillage in that way. That you could have cut something wrong. or there was damage in the frame, or the glass may have had a crack on it. That happens more often than not, actually. It's very hard to get just a perfect frame done in one shot. And then also the training process on that. If somebody's coming in with no framing experience, it could take several months to get to a point where you feel comfortable with them completing a full frame job. So we look for folks that have just a bit of experience that we can train. We always hire artists and know that they kind of have an eye and a technique to at least do some framing, or they've done some framing in the past. And then we look to hire folks that are already master framers, PFM certified.
That's a thing.
That's a thing. And then also it really does help that my dad is so involved in the business. I mean, he is a master framer in his own right. So the ability for us to come back here and say, hey, we do it this way. Let's cut this corner. Let's have some efficiency. That took you about an hour. It should have took about 30 minutes. Let's talk about what we could have done different. That's how we're involved every day.
That term has a completely different meaning in this business. We're going to cut corners here.
Yeah, literally
a lot of corners.
Cutting
corners all day long.
Cutting corners all day long. Yeah.
So we saw the old shop. We saw this. So this is really cool.
Yeah.
So what's these are the mats back here?
Those are the mats. This is just kind of what we keep upstairs. So we have mats upstairs. We have mats downstairs. We have hundreds of mats.
So these have different thicknesses, different feel, different textures to them.
Absolutely. So you have linen mats. You have suede mats. You have 8-ply mats. You have mats with the color core. What we keep here are our most popular mats, the mats that we sell every day, on many of the jobs, a lot of black, a lot of white, a lot of color. And these are just quick pulls. We take these and then we put them into our CNC. CNC's program, just think like Adobe Illustrator, very easy. You're putting in the size of the mat that's in there, the size of the cuts that we want, sometimes 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. And then you're taking that to then the framing table and attaching the objects. Downstairs, we have some other parts of the process, like a dry mount machine that flattens the art. We have our painter in the painting room. She's an amazing painter. She's doing a lot of the hand sketches and the hand painting. And then we have our engraving as well. These are the works that are prepped. These are all going to be done by the next shift. So these are essentially the works that they're going to be completing. You can see here, this is something that's going to be completed in just a bit here. Work like this. There's going to be another frame that goes over it, so it's going to be a double frame. But this is essentially set up for the next shift to take care of.
This is really cool. Thanks for showing us the back.
Oh yeah, of course.
Whole thing.
Of course. Yeah.